A wise man once said that good and bad luck were powerful forces that circled around the universe, touching different people at different times, and how bad or good someone's luck was really determined on how they dealt with certain situations that the universe threw at them at different times. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I experienced some real bad luck recently, but also some real good luck. So please stick around because we got some interesting stuff to talk about. Now, if you're wondering why this YouTube video is out much earlier in the week than usual, it's because in 2026 from now on, we're going back to the video format that I used when I first started this channel, and the video format that we had for years and you guys seem to prefer, where instead of me putting out one big breakdown video at the end of the week, where you guys probably haven't got enough time to watch it in its entirety, I'll be putting out 2, 3 or 4 breakdown videos every week, which will be much shorter, and in each of those videos we'll break down 2 or 3 fights. What this means is not only will I be able to get breakdown videos out to you sooner in the week so you have the proper time to watch them, but on top of that you'll get more breakdown videos because I'll be doing way more fight breakdowns throughout the week, so I'll try and put our video out most days. So if you like that new format, please hit the like button below. We're going to be covering 3 fights in today's video, and then as soon as this video gets 50 likes, I'll drop the next one. So that could be tomorrow, could be the day after. As soon as we get 50 likes on this video, we will be dropping the breakdown. And obviously we made good money last week betting on Sean O'Malley and Justin Gaethje. Hopefully you made a bit of cash betting on those 2 fights, and we've got some great bets for this weekend's card as well, where I'm very confident we're going to be able to make another profit this week. So hit the like button below, 50 likes, and pretty much in every video that drops this week I'm going to have bets for you, because UFC 325, it's a great card for betting, so we got a decent amount of action. And of course we had tons of action on last week's card, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. But before that, I want to talk about some bad luck that I've had recently. So if you guys have watched my vlogs, you can go on my YouTube channel, there's a few vlogs. You will have seen me driving around in my Porsche Taycan Turbo, which you see pictures of here. And you guys, if you've been watching my car channel for a long time, so if you've been watching my YouTube channel for a long time, you'll know I'm a car guy. On my live streams I talk about cars. Always talking about cars I want to buy, always talking about cars I've owned, and I absolutely love this Taycan Turbo. It was the greatest car I've ever experienced, actually. I think it is one of the best cars ever made, for reasons most people disagree with me on, but I absolutely love this car. And the theme of this video is talking about good luck and bad luck, right? So I love this car. You've heard me talk about this car. This car was, it meant a lot to me. I worked really hard for this car. And then over the Christmas period, this beautiful carmine red Taycan Turbo turned into, unfortunately, this carmine red Taycan Turbo. I know that the colors look a little bit different, but just because of the lighting, if you go on Google Images, carmine red, it's an unusual color where it kind of looks different depending on like different times of day, different lighting. But this is now unfortunately my car, and whilst when this happened I didn't think the damage was that bad and they would be able to repair it, I had the bad news recently that it's actually totaled and I won't be getting this back, which is absolutely brutal, and something I've worked really hard for over a long period of time and I absolutely loved is now gone forever and I can't get it back, which hurts. So this is the part of the video where I talk about the bad luck that I've had recently. Last couple of years have been absolute hell for me. You guys know that I specialize in live betting on the UFC, and due to broadcast changes with the UFC in the UK, a big part of my edge live betting the sport was destroyed in the last sort of 2-3 years, because they changed in the UK the broadcast latency, which meant I was delayed. I was watching the UFC fights quite a bit behind what the bookies were seeing, therefore I was at a disadvantage. I've fixed that problem now. I'm crushing it again on UFC live betting. Things have gone back to how they were. As you can see here on our profit chart, we've got this immense run here that lasts many years, and then in the UK they changed the broadcast delay here and that completely destroyed my edge. Well, not really. We were still making a profit after I realised what had happened and adjusted. But you can see the last sort of 6 months, I've fixed the latency issues, and we've been grinding out nice, steady, consistent profits ever since, to the point where our profitability curve is pretty much right back to where it was before we had, you know, the biggest dip we've ever had in the live betting group due to those latency problems. But now we're pretty much back to this level of profitability, which is where we were before the disaster. So anyway, I've had 2 years of hell, and finally, as you can see from my profit chart, last 6 months have been good, and I start making money again, which is very nice. Earning money again, everything's good, and I'm thinking to myself, man, if I keep this up, I'm gonna have the best 2026 ever. I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna make loads of money. You know, finally, all those problems I had with latency issues are gonna be behind me, and then bang, January 2nd, boom, my beloved Taycan Turbo ends up in pieces. And at the time, I wasn't that bothered, because the airbags didn't even go off. It wasn't, I didn't perceive this to be too much damage. I thought it'd be repairable, but it's not. And so I'll never get it back now, as told. Which is bad luck, and it hurts. But remember what the wise man once said, right? You have this mysterious force that circles around the universe. Good luck, bad luck, touching different people at different times. And I wouldn't necessarily say I was lucky last Saturday, because I worked really hard, and I spend a lot of time researching these fights, and I am the best in the world when it comes to live betting on this sport. And that's not through like talent or anything like that. It's just through sheer hard work. I barely leave my house. I chain myself to the desk, and I research these fights for hours and hours and hours. They give me an edge on Saturday nights. That's why I'm the best in the world at this. But on Saturday night, I'm not going to say that, you know, things balanced out, because I certainly didn't earn enough to go buy myself another Porsche. That's for damn sure. Got a bit more to go, and I need a few more Saturdays. They're good to do that. But we did have an absolutely phenomenal night in the live betting group. Live betting on the UFC is my bread and butter. It's what I do best. And we had a phenomenal night. We did really good. We went 4-1 on bets. I think if you can roll the mouse over, the exact profit was 3.43 units. We've done extremely well. That's a real solid profit for live betting. That's great. And not only that, that day I also went 3-0 on football bets, which is really cool. Many of you will know I've been working on building a new website for a long time. I've talked about this in previous videos. Spent a lot of money on this, invested a lot of money in this. So the new football part of the site isn't built yet. It should be coming by the end of this week. Otherwise, I'll be able to show you the performance on that too. But I always prioritize live betting on the UFC, because that's like my thing. That's my speciality. But the football stuff will be coming by the end of this week. And I went 3-0 on bets on Saturday as well. So 3.5 units on UFC live betting. It was about 2.5 units on football, 3-0, but about 2.5 units. So that was great. So overall, you know, up to about 6 units of profit on football and UFC live betting, which are my two main things. And then not only that, but we absolutely crushed it on pre-fight bets. Like, I put this video out last week saying I'm betting O'Malley and Gaethje. And again, I hope you all got in on that and made a bit of cash, but had a lot more bets last week, pre-fight bets, than just this. So if you go to my website, I will say this web page for pre-fight betting is completely out of date. As you can see, like the colors and everything don't match the rest of the site. These numbers are all wrong, and there's tons of bets missing from this database and this database. In fact, you can see the last time this was updated was like 2 years ago. And the reason being, you can see here I've got this notice, this is a temporary solution. You can see from all this new stuff up in the nav bar, I've built a completely new website, but you can see like some coming soon pages and that here. Basically, I used to post all my pre-fight bets on Discord, but we've moved from Discord back to the website. So I haven't had time to build a new like pre-fight betting platform into the new website yet. I haven't had time to build the football betting platform into it either, although that should be coming by the end of this week. So I have to resurrect the old system that we used to post pre-fight bets on, which is this one, which is why you can see this hasn't been updated for 2 years, because I resurrected it. I haven't used it for 2 years, but used it last week as like a little temporary solution to get some pre-fight bets out to my members. And you can see we did incredibly well, much better than I had anticipated. Actually, we went 6-0 on bets. Now, a massive part of this was due to the odds on the Bukauskas versus Krylov fight being capped like really inaccurately. When I researched that fight, not only could I not understand why Krylov was the underdog, but the odds on the overs were absolutely insane, to the point where, you know, I thought the over 1.5 rounds at almost even, well, almost dead even money were absurd, and the odds were very generous on over 2.5 rounds as well. So we ended up going 6-0 on pre-fight bets for about 10 units of profit. We went 3-0 on football bets for about 2.5 units of profit, and we went 3.43 units of profit in UFC live betting. So all told, I made like 16 units of profit on Saturday night, which is my biggest winning night in, it might even be years. I can't remember the last time that I made that much profit in just one day. And this is not a flex or to be like those really cringy guys on Twitter or Instagram that are like, boom, I'm so amazing, I never get a bet wrong, we never lose, we win all the time, boom, we're awesome. Not to be like all those cringy fuckers, but it's just to show you how crazy the world can be. Because 1 week earlier I was at a very low point when, you know, my car that I absolutely love, and it still hurts seeing this now because I'll never get it back, was destroyed, and that hurt bad. You know, I was at my lowest low a week ago, and then literally a week later I have my biggest winning day on betting in years. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that, because if you're in a really low place right now and life's beating you up and is dealing you bad hands, and you're finding things really tough and you feel like it's never going to end, just know, or just think, you honestly never know what's around the corner. I am a 40-year-old man with grey in my beard, and I can tell you right now, when things are going great, don't get complacent, because at any point in time something can change and destroy your life, right? Here, I can tell you right now, I was buying Porsches and shit here, you know what I'm saying? Like, life was good, everything was going great. Never in a million years thought that I would hit a bad patch on UFC live betting, because for the previous 8 years all I had done is win, and then bang, something happens that's completely outside of my control, with the UK broadcaster changing their delay times. It meant I have to completely change my live betting system and the way I do things, and I have to reinvent the way I do things. And eventually we got there, and the last 6 months have been great, and the next probably 10 years will be even better than this time here, right? We're going to go back to this. But you can see we're doing well the last 6 months since we fixed this delay problem. But yeah, here, never had a care in the world. I thought everything was amazing. I thought I was going to continue to make millions and millions of dollars betting this sport, having a great life, all that sort of shit. Bang, 2 years of utter hell. You know what I mean? And so just when you think everything's going great, don't get complacent, because the universe can switch on you in an instant. And just when you think everything's going bad and you're at an all-time low and life is shit and your car's got smashed up, out of nowhere a week later have the biggest winning week in years, certainly bigger than any cumulatively across football pre-fight bets and live, certainly my biggest winning night in, I would say, probably 2-3 years. So hopefully you guys benefited a little bit from that and got in on the winners on O'Malley and Gaethje, and hopefully we can help you earn some more cash during these tough times on this week's card, because like I say, hit the like button, 50 likes, I'll drop some videos with some bets in. So yeah, just wanted to just talk to you guys about that, because I know there's probably a lot of people struggling or watching this right now, but just think things can just change very quick when you least expect it. Anyway, should we get into breaking down some fights? Please hit the like button for me. 50 likes, we'll drop another video tomorrow or whenever those 50 likes come in. So we are using one part of my new website right now, which is my research tool that I built, and we're going to use this to start off by breaking down the fight between Dan Hooker and Benoit Saint-Denis. I feel like Hooker's been in the press, in the MMA media more recently than he ever has been at any other time in his career, which is interesting. He is a 3.48 underdog, which is going to be plus 248 for an implied probability of 30%. And Saint-Denis is a 1.30 favourite, which is going to be minus 330 for an implied probability of 77%. So if we take a look at the fighter comparison, so we can see Saint-Denis is 6 years younger than Hooker, which I think in this particular fight is a pretty big deal, because we have, in my opinion, started to see signs of significant decline in Dan Hooker. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of footage so you can kind of see what I mean by that, and exactly the decline that we have seen in Hooker, because some people would argue, well, Gamrot was one of the best performances of his career. You know, he's 3-1 in his last 4 fights, but I actually think there are hidden signs in these recent fights that he is declining, which is sad because I love Dan Hooker, but he has had, you know, close to 40 pro fights, and he has taken a ton of damage in his career. He's been in loads of wars. They're about the same size, which you wouldn't really expect because Hooker's very long and tall, but he's only 1 inch taller than Saint-Denis. Only has a 2-inch reach advantage as well, and only a 2-inch leg reach advantage, although I suppose the 3 different size advantages there do kind of compound and they all add up. In terms of strikes landed per minute, that's a slight edge for Saint-Denis, although it is worth noting that generally speaking, Hooker has fought a much higher level of opponent throughout his career. I know Saint-Denis had the odd big fight against Dustin Poirier, but the point being, these stats are cumulative. So Hooker's stats have been cumulatively generated from a higher level of opponent. Therefore, Saint-Denis, had he fought the same level of opponent as Hooker, I doubt would be as high as Hooker in the numbers. Saint-Denis a little bit more accurate as well, and same thing goes for, you know, him probably not being as accurate as this had he faced the level of opponent Hooker's faced. But Hooker's striking defense is better, you know, quite interesting, because he has fought a much higher level of opponent, but obviously Saint-Denis is very reckless, so it's no surprise, I guess, that he gets hit a lot more. Obviously, though, Hooker's primarily a striker, Saint-Denis primarily a grappler, so all the grappling stats lean in the Frenchman's favour. And as you can see, he's very aggressive with the takedown. 3.5 takedowns on average per fight is a lot, especially considering, you know, 4.19 takedowns is measured per fight, and Saint-Denis fights generally don't last that long, so that means he is hyper ultra aggressive with trying to get fights to the ground. So in terms of submission attempts per 15 minutes, as we know, he's quite aggressive on the ground as well. So strike distribution charts, both guys like to mix it up more than average, to be fair, and Saint-Denis, we know, has devastating body kicks. That's what these 21% of strikes to the body are. So in terms of how these two match up from a stylistic point of view, obviously Saint-Denis is more well-rounded than Hooker in the sense that he doesn't mind standing and striking as well as grappling. But in the context of this fight, I'm not saying Saint-Denis couldn't win a stand-up fight here. His striking's decent. I think Hooker is on a decline. But the way I would more view this to justify this heavy price tag on Saint-Denis would be to look at this fight in terms of striker in Hooker versus grappler in Saint-Denis. And in order for Hooker to win this fight, I think he's really going to need to keep the fight standing to have any hope here. So the one thing about Saint-Denis is obviously he does have a tendency to come out the gate very hard and then fade as fights wear on. He does have a tendency to slow down and get a bit sloppier. Hooker obviously has phenomenal cardio. One of the reasons why he was able to beat Gamrot was because his cardio held up better. Saint-Denis does slow. However, Saint-Denis isn't the kind of guy to fall apart when he gets tired. He's such a tough fucker that he will hang in there. And he's an absolute dog, and he's still, you know, reasonably effective when he gets tired. So we spoke about Hooker's decline, and I want to show you some footage so you can kind of see that for yourself, because obviously Saint-Denis is a very strong grappler. We've seen that he aggressively pursues the takedown, and we know Hooker doesn't have the best takedown defense. What we also know is Saint-Denis is very aggressive at pursuing the finish on the ground. So this does make that a very difficult fight for Hooker. So what I'm first going to do, we're not going to look at the a Gamrot fight too much. We're only basically going to use this so you can see Hooker's takedown defense, because if we look at the fighter comparison, you can see that his takedown defense is 78%, which is good, right? 78% takedown defense is really respectable. However, when we were breaking down the fight last week between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett, even though we did bet Justin Gaethje in the end, we said one of the big concerns with betting Gaethje is that as you get older, one of the first things to go was your balance. So even though Gaethje was a former NCAA Division 1 level wrestler, at 37 years old, there was a risk his balance would have declined significantly since he last fought someone that tried to take him down, and therefore Paddy might have an easy time on the ground, although we thought that was unlikely, which is why we still bet Gaethje. With Hooker, I do think we've seen signs that his balance is starting to go, because you've got to remember, Hooker's had over 20 fights in the UFC, right? He made his debut all the way back in 2014, so 12 years ago now. And so his takedown defense includes a lot of fights from when he was a lot younger and in his prime. But if we know balance is one of the first things that go as you start to get older, his takedown defense isn't 78% anymore. So if we hit play on the Gamrot fight, what I want you to pay attention to is just Hooker's takedown defense straight up, and then I'm going to explain to you why, even though Hooker does well in grappling against Gamrot, why I think he will really struggle against Saint-Denis. So in order to understand what I'm going to tell you, you've got to have a little bit of faith in my interpretation of their abilities. So basically, if you've been watching my channel for many years, you'll know that I've never rated Gamrot since he come into the UFC, to the extent where I've been trolled relentlessly since Gamrot made his debut, because I've never rated him. You know, his cardio's always been bad, and his grappling control's never been good either. But he was one of these hyped guys that people thought was very good, and then it just took him a while. It took him a couple of years to get exposed. Then he eventually did get exposed, and now everyone sees that Gamrot is bang average. But I called this from the very first few fights in the UFC against Scott Holtzman and said, look, this guy is not as good as people think. And so what you really need to do to understand why Saint-Denis is a tough fight for Hooker is understand the difference between Gamrot and Saint-Denis. So the issues that Gamrot has had throughout his career since the very beginning, and it's terrifying the more people didn't spot this, because if you go and watch my old breakdown videos on Gamrot, I've been saying this for fucking years, he doesn't have any physicality to his grappling control. So the thing with Gamrot is his takedown entries are good, his chain wrestling's good, his offensive wrestling is good, he is good at getting you down because his timing's very good, he commits fully to his takedowns. What Gamrot is not good at is keeping you down. He lacks physicality. He really struggles to hold guys down, and he always has. So what you'll notice is Hooker doesn't cause Gamrot big problems in this fight because he can stop Gamrot from taking him down. Hooker causes Gamrot big problems in this fight because he quickly works back up to his feet and then punishes Gamrot on the feet. So we can see it here, right? Gamrot got this takedown easily, but then Hooker was able to quickly pop back up to his feet. And then if we go here, right, a few seconds later on, he's kind of hurt there, but Gamrot just kind of snaps him down, rolls him onto his back with a guillotine. But Gamrot doesn't have very good grappling control, doesn't have a very heavy top game, so Hooker's able to create space for himself off his back, scramble over the cage, stand back up, right? So if we keep going, stuffs his takedown here because Gamrot's already starting to get tired and become a panic wrestler. So we'll just skip through that one and go into round two. So here we go, into round two. So again, remember, we're only watching this fight to focus on Hooker's takedown defense. Gamrot drives into a kick on a double leg takedown, gets it. But again, Gamrot doesn't have particularly good top control, doesn't have very good top game, isn't that physically imposing. So eventually, Hooker's able to create space for himself off his back, scramble over to the cage, and get back up. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. But you can see the theme here, right? Gamrot keeps getting him down. got him down there, shoots in on a single leg. Hooker tries to stuff it with a guillotine. So if we think about the takedown defense stat on Hooker, his takedown defense stat is 78%, and what we're seeing from Hooker is not conducive to that stat, because I think Gamrot has shot 5 takedowns in this fight so far and completed 4 of them, which would mean Hooker's takedown defense in this particular fight is only 20%, right? Obviously, Hooker's takedown defense is going to start to become more effective, though, now that Gamrot is getting tired, and we know Gamrot's cardio is a real big issue. So we can see he's in on a single leg here. But now he's too tired to get it. So we go into round 3, and we wouldn't expect Gamrot to have a whole lot of success in round 3 because he's getting tired now. But he shoots in on a single leg there. Great balance from Hooker. Drives into a single leg the other side and gets taken down again. Right? So he's what? 1-for-6, and that's another one there, right? So he gets back up, and then Gamrot's in on the single leg, takes him down again. So what's that? 1-for-7 on defending takedowns in this fight. Not reflective of someone with 78% takedown defense, right? And obviously by this point Gamrot's gassed, so when he shoots, very predictable, not as strong, doesn't generate as much drive. Therefore Hooker deals with it a lot better. So anyway, that's pretty much what I want to show you there. Now, remember what I said. The reason why I've never rated Gamrot, and I've been ridiculed on this channel in my comment section for years for saying that Gamrot was a bang average grappler and nothing special. One of the main reasons why I've never rated Gamrot is because of that lack of physicality. There's a reason why you can shoot 10 takedowns in that fight, get like 6 or 7 of them, and still the majority of the fight is a stand-up fight. Is because Gamrot doesn't have that physicality to hold you down. So what happens when Hooker faces someone that does have the physicality to hold him down? Well, luckily for us, we've got the Arman Tsarukyan fight to see for ourselves. So that takedown entry from Tsarukyan was a bit too high up above the hips of Hooker. You can see it if we just go back here, too high up above the hips. To take a guy like Hooker down, you got to do what Gamrot did a great job of in getting in on his legs. Look at the height Tsarukyan shoots at. Too high up above the hips, and that gives Hooker an opportunity to get underhooks in play. So no surprise that Tsarukyan didn't get that one. So let's see now. They're up against the cage. Hooker tries to take the back. Tsarukyan gets in on a double leg, and Hooker gives up a cheap takedown, hunting for a guillotine. So Tsarukyan rolls out of it, gets in the top position. So remember, in the Gamrot fight, Gamrot wasn't able to control Hooker for very long. He didn't have the physicality to hold him down. But look at the difference with Tsarukyan. So they're on the ground at, call it, it establishes top position at, call it, 2 minutes 23 left in the round. Hair's gone all crazy. My hair's gone all crazy. So 2 minutes 23. So they've been on the ground for about 30 seconds now. Look at the difference. They've been on the ground for a minute now. Look at the difference. Look how weak Hooker is off his back when he's got someone on top of him that actually has the physicality to control him and hold him down. Look at this. So he's been on the ground for 2 minutes at this point. So compare what you've just seen to the Gamrot fight. Every time Gamrot got him down, 30-40 seconds later, Hooker was able to pop back up to his feet. Tsarukyan establishes top position here and is able to hold Hooker down for almost 2.5 minutes. So if we go into round 2, so very, very early into round 2, Tsarukyan just grabs a single leg. Again, instead of trying to defend the takedown, Hooker jumps on a guillotine, which is a very bad idea against someone as skilled as Tsarukyan. So now he's established top position with 4 minutes 5 seconds left to go in round 2. And if we just skip through, just completely smashes Hooker to bits, to the point where at this point he's been on top of Hooker for 3 minutes and just continues to just do whatever he wants to him for getting a submission close to being in top position for 4 minutes. So what this Tsarukyan fight basically showed us is if you have strong grappling control and a strong top game, you can hold Hooker down easily, because he hit 2 takedowns on Hooker in this fight. Hooker never even got close to getting back up. So that's real notable, because Benoit Saint-Denis is a very strong, physically imposing grappler. He's huge, he's strong. You know, one of the reasons why Saint-Denis slows down his fights we're on is because he's got that raw physicality which comes at a cost, right? And so this is a really tough fight for Dan Hooker, because irrespective of how well he might do on the feet, his takedown defense is so bad. I mean, if you think cumulatively between the Gamrot and Sarukian fights, what Hooker's takedown defense would have been, probably only would have been about 10 to 15%. I'm sure between those 2 fights, you know, Sarukian and Gamrot shot about 12 takedowns on him. I think he only stuffed maybe 2 of them when Gamrot started to get real tired in that 3rd round. Maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 max. And even then, his takedown offense would still only be about 30%. So even though Saint-Denis does slow down his fights we're on, and Hooker to some extent kind of has home advantage, the New Zealand-Australia connection, I don't think that's going to be enough to save him here. And I think Saint-Denis, if he gets into trouble, will take him down. And I think Saint-Denis will just dominate him from top position and smash him. Now, Saint-Denis is a wild guy. He might want to put on a show. He might want to stand and bang. It would be a huge mistake. But if he did, maybe that's one way Hooker could win the fight. Maybe he can draw Saint-Denis into a stand-up war. But if Saint-Denis goes to his grappling, I think Hooker is absolutely screwed, to be honest with you. And this is a real bad fight for him. And so from a betting point of view, that makes this fight very difficult because to get any value on Saint-Denis at all, you'd have to give him a better than 80% chance of winning, which is extremely difficult to do. I mean, surely not even Saint-Denis' mum could give him an 80% or better chance of winning this. It's a very aggressive implied probability on these odds. So for me, you can't really bet Saint-Denis. But at the same time, when you look at how badly Hooker struggled against his last 2 opponents, and yes, he beat Gamrot, but really, you know, that said more about the issues with Gamrot, in my opinion, than the issues with Hooker, because ultimately Gamrot still got Hooker down 7 or 8 times, and to take someone down 7 or 8 times and not be able to win a decision, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's almost mathematically impossible, the amount of time you should have spent in control positions. So I wouldn't be touching Hooker here. Unfortunately, this is an easy fight to pass on for me. I haven't taken a look at the props yet. Should we take a quick look at the props? Again, talking about my website being unfinished, I do actually have an odds converter, an odds comparison page, an odds comparison system that I've built. However, I haven't got props set up yet. So where I'm talking about there being certain coming soon areas, and my football betting part not being set up, and my pre-fight betting part not being set up yet, I also have only got moneyline odds in the odds comparison and no props yet. So we'll have to look at props on another site. Let's see what we've got. What is fight doesn't go to a decision? That's terrible odds, 1.36, which is going to be about minus 280, something like that. So yeah, I very much doubt this fight will go to a decision. The odds reflect that. I just wanted to check because, like I said, the odds on the overs on the Bukauskas-Krylov fight was so absurd last week, where we were able to make very, very nice profits off that. That it's always worth checking in case there's any inaccuracies in the over-unders, but in this case they're not. It's bang on, unfortunately, so no money for us to be made there. So yeah, my website, much of it is finished. We're like 90% of the way there. Just got to do a football betting system, pre-fight betting system, so you have like a results dashboard basically, and then little bugs like the page being cut off. These stars look really not in line with the kind of styling that I'm going for. And we need some prop bets on these odds comparisons. And there's just a couple more tools and we'll be done with the site. So yeah, come online, play around with it. So yeah, hope you found that useful. If you did, hit the like button below. And if we get 50 likes, we'll drop that other video straight away, hopefully tomorrow, with some juicy bets for UFC 325. But for now, let's just break down the next fight, which is going to be Rafael Fiziev versus Maurizio Ruffy. So both these guys are in the even money odds range. Fiziev a 1.81 favourite, which is going to be minus 123 for an implied probability of 55%. And if we take a look at the odds on Ruffy, he's about a 2.0 favourite, which is going to be plus 100 for an implied probability of 50%. So very close to 50-50 in the eyes of the bookies. And this is a great fight. When I first saw this matchup, I think Ruffy was about a 2.20 plus 120 underdog. That was very attractive to me. From my perspective, I thought this would be a really good fight for Ruffy, and at underdog odds, I was planning on betting him. But this was one of those matchups where, when I researched the fight, I didn't like Ruffy as much as I thought I would. And so I'll explain to you in this breakdown the reasons why. And then I'd love to get your thoughts in either the chat room. If you're in my community, slide by the chat room. Let me know how you feel about this fight. If you're watching on YouTube, please drop a comment below, because this is a tough fight to call in my opinion, and I'm way more uncertain on how this plays out after researching it. So let's start off with the fighter comparison tool. Both guys are about the same age, nothing major there. Ruffy obviously is long and tall, whereas Fiziev has that smaller, muscular, more compact body type. So Ruffy has a decent size advantage as a result of that. 3-inch height, 4-inch reach, 1-inch leg reach, and obviously those size advantages all compound together. Fiziev lands slightly more strikes per minute, but like I always say, these are cumulative stats that build up over a fighter's entire UFC career. So even though there's only a slight edge for Fiziev in terms of strikes landed per minute, this actually could be a pretty decent advantage in terms of strikes landed per minute, because Ruffy has accumulated a 4.54 strikes per minute stat based on a much lower level of competition than Fiziev. So this stat is actually, it's only 5% more strikes per minute, but it's against a much higher level of opponent, which makes that stat a lot more impressive than that stat. Ruffy's a bit more accurate, which again, against the lower level of opponent than what Fiziev has generally faced, you'd expect. Same goes for striking defense. Now, virtually nothing to talk about really when it comes to grappling stats with these two. They're both primarily strikers. The strike distribution chart is quite interesting, because it shows that for the most part, Ruffy doesn't bother attacking the body or legs. He throws 85% of his strikes to the head, and he's very much a headhunter. Whereas Fiziev mixes things up a lot, likes to go to the body and the legs with his devastating kicking game. And we know he's got an absolutely vicious kick to the body, and he likes to obviously switch southpaw to throw that, so it wraps right across the body of the orthodox stance fighters. So in terms of how these two match up stylistically, we'll quickly go over grappling, but I don't think we'll see this fight go to the ground. Both these guys are strikers. They like to stand and bang. The fight did go to the ground. Obviously, Fiziev would have the advantage. We saw Ruffy exposed a little bit on the ground in his last fight against Saint-Denis. Fiziev's very difficult to take down, so I can't see Ruffy getting this fight to the ground, even if he wanted to, which he probably won't. Fiziev could theoretically maybe take Ruffy down, but it's very, very rare that Fiziev will try and shoot a takedown. I mean, you can see here, 0.89 takedowns per fight is actually higher than I thought it would be, but generally speaking, Fiziev is more than happy to stand and bang. So in terms of how these two match up when it comes to striking, the reason why I liked Ruffy is because he's got the size, he's got the length, he's got the power. He uses his distance and his length well. He's very good at controlling the distance, and he's got that sniper style of striking, that accuracy where, and he throws those single shots, and he's very effective with them. He's very, very dangerous. And from my perspective, Fiziev is one of these kind of undersized guys for the division at just 5'8", and he kind of stands in front of his opponents and chips away at them, but he doesn't have a particularly judge-pleasing style. He doesn't have major power, and I just thought the length, the size, the power, the accuracy of Ruffy would give him big problems. Now, earlier in the breakdown, I said that when I started to research this fight, I started to like Ruffy a lot less. And the reason why I liked Ruffy a lot less is because I didn't realise how passive he was. And what I mean by that is, during Ruffy's fights, you do have these long periods of inactivity where he doesn't actually do a lot. And the reason why he's won the majority of his fights in the UFC is because he's so technical and so skilled that once he starts to just use his length to chip away at his opponents, they kind of go into a defensive shell and they show him a lot of respect, which enables him to not really throw that much, not really engage that much, and pick his shots. So he can kind of get away with being passive and being a relatively low volume striker. Like I say, even though the volume difference between these two isn't that much, you've got to remember this is against a much lower level of opponent, and there are certain sequences in fights where he's had his opponent on the back foot and hurt, so he opens up and gets more aggressive, which can distort that stat, because for long periods of his fights outside of that, he doesn't do that much really. Whereas Fiziev is very consistent with his output. He stands right in front of you, and he's constantly attacking the legs and the body with his kicking game, and he's very active with his boxing as well. Obviously, he's more of a kicker than a boxer, but Fiziev is a lot more active. And so this is a real interesting fight, because for me it's kind of like the technique, the power, the accuracy, the damage of Ruffy versus the volume of Fiziev. And that's why I'm kind of torn on this one, because, you know, if you think back to the reasons why we bet Sean O'Malley against Song Yadong last week, it was because even though Song Yadong had this big power, we said it would be very difficult for Song Yadong to outstrike O'Malley with O'Malley's ability to use his length and his technique and his volume. It was going to be real difficult for Song Yadong to keep up with that volume that O'Malley would put on him. And we kind of saw that in the third round, where by the time the third round came around, O'Malley just danced around Yadong and chipped away at him with the jab, and he really didn't have an answer. And so that's not going to happen here, because obviously Fiziev is a lot smaller than Ruffy. But he does, I'm telling you, even though the volume stats are very close, in actual real terms, Fiziev throws a hell of a lot more volume. So, from my perspective, if this one were to go the distance, which is very likely to, because they're both very tough and very durable, unless Ruffy has scored, you know, a few knockdowns or something to take 2 out of the 3 rounds that way, I do find it difficult to see Ruffy outstriking Fiziev, because he's not going to be able to keep up with Fiziev's volume. The only way in which that would not be true would be if Fiziev really struggles with the size and the reach and the length of Ruffy, which is possible, but Fiziev is a very high level striker who you'd have a little bit of faith in having a game plan and a strategy to prepare for and deal with the length, because it's not like Fiziev is turning up to this fight on Saturday night facing a completely unknown opponent, or have an opponent do things to him that he didn't expect them to do and catch him off guard. He knows Ruffy is long and tall and likes to be very rangy and use his length to control the distance. So there's no surprises here. So Fiziev should be prepared for that and have a strategy to counteract that. Even though it won't be easy, it's not like Ruffy has the element of surprise on his side. So I'm quite torn on this one. I don't really have a strong opinion at all. I mean, I would lean Ruffy, because I think his size and length is going to be difficult to deal with. He does have more power and land more damaging shots, and I think if he does get a little bit busier, he will outstrike Fiziev. But based on past performances, I think this fight should be razor close, and I can understand why they're in the even money odds range. So yeah, I hope you found that useful, and again, if you did, please hit the like button below, and we can get those breakdown videos coming tomorrow and the day after and throughout the rest of this week. So please, 50 likes and we'll drop the next breakdown video. So the next fight that I'm going to break down in this video is going to be Junior Tafa versus Billy Elekana, and this is going to be another matchup where I'm going to show you a little bit of fight footage so that you can see where I'm coming from. So again, similar to the fight between Benoit Saint-Denis and Dan Hooker. I wouldn't necessarily call this a striker versus grappler matchup because Billy Elekana is a well-rounded fighter. We've seen him engage in a 15-minute stand-up fight against Ibo Aslan. But in the context of this matchup, we can think about it as a classic striker versus grappler matchup because we know Junior Tafa is, you know, a very one-dimensional striker with no ground game, and we're going to show you a little bit of footage of this. So we'll start off by taking a look at the odds. We can see that Elekana is a 1.42 favourite, which is going to be minus 238 for an implied probability of 70%, and Tafa is a 2.90 underdog, which is going to be plus 190 for an implied probability of 35%. So if we take a look at the fighter comparison tool, both guys are about the same age, about the same size as well, not too much going on there. And in terms of the stats, you can see Tafa, hell of a lot more aggressive on the feet. Not a great surprise because we had that 15-minute staring contest between Aslan and Elekana where not a lot happened. Elekana a lot more accurate, but again, that's probably because he doesn't throw fucking much, so when he does throw, he makes sure it lands. Defense, Tafa's a bit better, which is a bit of a surprise because of some of the reckless wars he's been in. Elekana, though, much more likely to go for a takedown. We know we've already said Tafa's a pure striker, so on average, just under 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. Tafa's takedown defense, this is why stats are only as useful as they are interpreted. 69% takedown defense, just like Dan Hooker's 78% takedown defense, is very impressive, but we know the devil is in the detail, and Tafa's takedown defense is actually pretty horrendous, so I wouldn't put any weight on that stat at all. In terms of strike distribution chart, Tafa has never landed a strike to the legs, which is very rare. You can see that he headhunts. 92% of strikes thrown to the head. All he does is try and knock your head off your shoulders with power punches, and he is, as we all know, very much a knockout artist. So we can see Elekana mixes things up a little bit more, but for the most part, he's also very much a head striker, head hunter as well. So how do these two match up from a stylistic point of view? Well, this will be a very easy fight for Billy Elekana if he grapples, in my opinion, because he's not a bad grappler. He's got decent offensive wrestling, reasonably strong on the ground, good top game. And we know Tafa is very easy to take down, despite that 68% takedown defense. He's very low level on the ground, very easy to take down, very easy to hold down. And another thing with Tafa, if you make him grapple a little bit, he does get tired really quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up Tafa's last fight against Tuco Tokos, and you're just going to see the issues with Tafa on the ground. We're only going to watch one fight because we don't want to make this breakdown video super long, but then you can kind of see for yourself why this can be a very easy fight for Elekana if you fight smart. So Tokos in on a single leg, Tafa goes down, Tukos just kind of beats him up against the cage before Tafa stands back up. Very, very nice. And then if we skip through, Taco, so yeah, we could talk a little bit about the technique, right? So you'll probably hear the commentators like Daniel Cormier, Dominic Cruz talk about this a lot, right? When someone is trying to take you down, you can see Tokos in on a single leg here. The worst thing you can do is try and attack them with elbows or strikes. What you want to be doing is dealing with the takedown. You want to be trying to push down on the head and free your leg that your opponent is attacking the takedown with, or you want to be trying to dig underhooks. When you start to strike your opponent, all you do is allow them to get in even deeper on your lower body and complete the takedown. Yes, every once in a while you get an Alistair Overeem type situation where, you know, you'll elbow your opponent to death in this position and you'll get the knockout, but it's very rare. Generally speaking, you should just focus on defending the takedown instead of throwing these elbows, because if you allow your opponent to get in deeper on your legs, the end result is like this 90% of the time. You get taken down. And you can see the look of frustration on Tafa's face here. So if we just skip through, Tafa does stand back up then, but every time Tokos gets in on that single leg, he goes down very, very easily. And the more you take him down, the less capable Tafa is of working his way back up to his feet, because he gets more and more tired. And then once he's down, Tokos kind of just overwhelms him, ends up mounting him, smashing him, all that good stuff. So if we go into round 2, you can see early in round 2, Tokos looking a bit tired here, but sloppy, low-level light heavyweight shoots on a double leg again, rather than trying to dig underhooks to defend this takedown. You know, look at the space in there. Look at where Tafa's right arm is. He should be trying to dig an underhook in here to defend the takedown. Instead, he chooses to throw elbows with it instead. That just enables Tokos to complete the double leg and take him down. And then what happens? Just gets overwhelmed on the ground, mauled, and stopped. Not too long after that. Actually, a few minutes after that, to be fair to Tafa. Eventually gets submitted. So, as you can see, Tafa's takedown offense is very, very bad. But we know Elekana for being more of a striker. But if we bring up Elekana's fight against Mr. Bogdan Guskov, it doesn't last very long. But what we can see is a willingness from Elekana to grapple. So if we start the fight, and remember, Elekana took this fight on less than a week's notice. So the fact he capitulates in round 1 isn't a whole lot surprising. But we can see here, just over 30 seconds into the fight, shoots a nice single leg, drives through, gets the back take, and actually ends up controlling Guskov from back control for a good amount of time. Decent back control as well. Deep hooks in play. Probably should have gone to the body triangle. So he ends up getting reversed. But he goes to the body triangle there actually. But decent overall grappling control from Elekana before basically getting reversed and melted late in the round. So decent control. All that good stuff. And then just kind of melts late in the round when he gives up position. But I just wanted to show you that clip, because Elekana in the Guskov fight came out, shot a takedown, and kind of did well controlling Guskov from back control, which is not something we've really seen a whole lot from Elekana, to be fair. For the most part, he's been more of a striker. So that fight just kind of shows that he will occasionally come in with a grappling heavy game plan, and he's pretty capable when he does that. And we know his cardio's good. We've seen him go 3 rounds against Aslan. Admittedly, the output was very low, so he didn't have to exert too much energy, but he still fought at a decent pace for 3 rounds. And so, yeah, from my perspective, if Elekana just comes into this fight with a grappling heavy game plan, he should beat Tafa easily. Yes, Tafa's got devastating knockout power. He's very aggressive. If Elekana is dumb enough to stand and strike with Tafa, he could wind up getting himself knocked out. But if at any point Elekana gets into trouble, he should be able to use Tafa's forward pressure and aggression against him, change levels, shoot a takedown, get the fight to the ground, absolutely dominate him like Tokos did. So from a betting point of view, again, this fight is a very difficult one, because to get any value on Elekana, you'd have to give him better than 75% chance of winning, which is impossible against someone as dangerous as Tafa. But at the same time, you don't want to be betting on Tafa at an implied probability of 34.5%, simply because his takedown defense and ground game is a joke, and we absolutely know Elekana has the skills to expose that. So, you know, whichever side you put your money on in this fight isn't a good deal, and so you shouldn't bet either of them. But what you should do is hit the like button right now, and as soon as this video gets 50 likes, we'll drop another breakdown video with some great value bets for UFC 325. And everyone should have made a bit of cash last week with the Gaethje and O'Malley bets. If you're a member of my community, you did great last week. Collectively across football, UFC live betting, and pre-fight betting, we made 16 units. Somewhere in that ballpark anyway, around 16 units. And we're going to have a big 2026. We're going to have an amazing 2026. Do you know why we're going to have an amazing 2026? Because the last couple of years have been shit. My life has been hell. It has not been fun. And I've had a real difficult time. But remember what I said at the beginning of this video. A wise man once said that good luck and bad luck circulates around the universe, touching different people at different times in different ways. And if you're present and ready to receive that good luck or fight the bad luck when it comes, then you're going to do all right. And for the last 2 years, I've fought like hell. And I've dug myself out of a real bad situation with these latency issues, which destroyed my income. But the last 6 months, all that hard work, all that fighting paid off, and I started to consistently make money almost every weekend again. And then you know what? The universe was like, one last punch, one last blow. Let's knock him down one last time. And I'm going to destroy his beloved Porsche Taycan Turbo, which he worked very, very hard for. But you know what? I didn't cry about it. I didn't moan about it. Didn't feel sorry for myself. I didn't get depressed. I got back on the horse. I bet football every day. I worked my absolute ass off researching these UFC fights. And a week after my Porsche got totaled, we came back with my biggest winning day in over 2 years. And so, you know, we're going to keep fighting, and 2026 is going to be massive for us. So I hope you come along for the ride. If you only watch my videos on YouTube, I hope I can help you make a good profit this year in 2026 watching my videos. And if you're a part of my community, if you're in my live betting group, or even if you're just one of many people that just hang around the site and engage in all the community features and chat rooms that we've got, then hopefully, you know, you'll be able to make a good profit in 2026 too. I'm on a mission this year to try and make as many people's lives better as possible in whatever way I can, either through YouTube breakdowns, the live betting group, the football group. I just want to help as many people as possible, because I've had a shit 2-3 years, and I know a lot of you have probably had a shit 2-3 years, and so I want to help make it a little bit better. And if you're about to embark, if say the last 2-3 years were brilliant for you, and you know, maybe you're about to hit your bad 2-3 years, I want to be here to maybe put a smile on your face, cheer you up a little bit, and put an extra bit of cash in your bank with my UFC bets. So thank you for watching. Hit the like button. We'll be back very soon as we get 50 likes. Have a great week, guys. Love you all. Take care. Bye.